Hi, I'm Vivian Sesgundo. I will present to you my study entitled Determining Spatial Distribution of the BSP Supervised Banks in the Philippines, a Multivariate Cluster Analysis. Let me share you my screen. All right. As of July 2022, the BSP recorded 29,275 financial institutions in the Philippines. It's composed of 55% non-banks, 45% banks, 89 units, insurance companies, and one offshore banking unit. The BSP launched initiatives on financial inclusion through programs and policies to help Filipinos to have increased access to financial services. They promote a di- digital, wider use of digital payments. So for this study, we are going to focus on the uh, BSP supervised banks in the Philippines. This is composed of um, offices and branches, physical banks. So for this study, we're going to use the demographic variables, economic variables, labor market variables, and market potential proxy variables. These data is from the Philippine Statistics Authority. And our dependent variable will be the number of banks in the Philippines from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Then, we are going to apply linear regression based on ordinary least squares, parameter estimation, spatial autocorrelation using Moran's IE statistics, and multivariate cluster analysis on these variables to see if um, to have our output. So we are aiming to find the significant factors in determining the number of banks in the Philippine regions, the model in predicting the number of banks in the region given the dependent variables, and the special distribution of the BSP supervised banks in the Philippines. So for this study, the researcher opted to have one representative from each categories of the variables. Let's say, for example, under demographic variable, we are going to choose which among these three demographic variables are factors or a great factor in determining the number of banks in the Philippines. So this study aims to answer the following statement of the problem. What are the characteristics of the regions in the Philippines? Is there a significant relationship between the characteristics of the regions and the number of banks in the Philippine regions? What is the best model to determine the needed number of banks in the region? What is the characteristics of the spatial distribution of the BSP supervised banks in the Philippines? Is there any region in the Philippines that lacks financial inclusion? And lastly, where are the best locations for the future banks or branches? So for the results, we identified the highest and lowest um, value for each of the variables. Then, for the number of banks, the National Capital Region has the highest number of physical or branches, and the lowest is BARMM. For the population, as of 2020 census, uh, Region 4A has the highest population or the most populated region in the Philippines, and the lowest is CAR. Then population growth rate, BARMM has the highest rather, and region 8 has the lowest population growth rate. Then for the population density, the NCR has the most population density and CAR has the lowest. Then we can see here around that the number of establishments in operation in education sector also for the transportation and storage establishments, NCR has the highest and BARMM has the lowest. Okay. And then for the problem 2, for the significant relationship, we have run the correlation analysis for the variables. So we can see that uh, the population growth rate, certified alienable and disposable land, average savings of families at current prices, and an unemployment rate has a weak negative or weak positive correlation with the number of banks. So arranging the resulted correlation, we identified top 5 and lowest 5 variables. Okay, so the higher education graduates as of 2018 to 2019, number of establishments in operation, number of transportation and storage establishments, number of establishments in education sector, and population density are the variables with the highest correlation with the number of banks. And the following variables: functional literacy rate, average savings of families, population growth rate, unemployment rate, and certified alienable and disposable land are the variables with the lowest correlation with the number of banks. So running the exploratory regression analysis, we have the following models with the highest adjusted R squared. Then we opted to choose the second model with the highest AICC. The reason is that we mentioned earlier that we wanted to have one variable to represent the categories of each variable. Let's say, for example, for the second model, C is the population density, which represent the economic variable. D, economically active population. Rather, the C is population density represent the demographic variable. Then economically active population represents the economic variable. Functional literacy rate, or M here, represent the labor market, and the last variable is the family's ownership of personal computer as the variable to represent the proxy one. So we are going to use this because the first one, A and C, are variables population and population density, which are both in demographic variable. Because we run also the multicollinearity analysis to see that the variable we selected are not collinear. Then we check if the variables or the model we selected satisfy all the assumptions for the model. Therefore, this is the equation in determining the number of banks in the Philippines. So we use the following identified variables in determining the number of banks. So running Moran's I, we found out that the actual number of banks and the estimated number of banks using the model we selected, the spatial distribution of the number of banks is both clustered. This means that the number of banks or the physical banks, offices, and branches are clustered in some regions. Then the variable-wise summary of the selected model, we can see here that the variable C, or the population density, is the variable that contributes most to the number of banks in the Philippines. So we can see here the estimated number of banks, and the graph or the map of the actual number of banks is the same. And here we have the 7 clusters formed using the selected model. So we can see here that region 1, CAR, and region 2 formed one cluster. Region 3 and region 4A formed another cluster, but NCR is a lone region that formed its own cluster. So these are the clustering of the number of banks using the selected model. So we have here the link of the number of banks and the population density per region. This table is from the Philippine Statistics Authority. So we can see here the arrangement per density of the Philippines. So here the National Capital Region as lone, followed by the following regions, forming their clusters. So we estimated the number of banks and subtracted the actual number of banks to see which regions needs more banks in the Philippines to promote financial inclusion. So we identified the following regions with a lowest residual, which are the Region 10, CAR, BARMM, and Region 8. So we can see here that Region 7 and Mimaropa has more actual number of banks compared to the estimated number of banks. Then we can say that these regions needs or the best locations for the future banks or branches. So if the investors or the government wanted to put up or establish another office or branch, they may consider the following regions. So specifically Region 10, BARMM, and CAR. So this study concludes that this is the equation to estimate the number of banks needed in the region. So if the following variables are updated or available, the population density and the mentioned variables, we can estimate the number of banks needed by the region. So the result of this model is the estimated number of banks, and the difference between the actual and estimated number of banks is the indicator of which regions are lacking physical banks. Based on the results of this study, Region 10, CAR, and BARMM are the best locations for the future physical banks to be established. So we recommend that for the future researchers, they may consider running this study in city or municipality level, or plot on the map the exact locations of every bank in the Philippines to see the exact location for the future establishment of new branch or office. Then exclusive study for NCR, similar study for BARMM and other regions with low presence of physical banks, and explore other variables. So take note that this study, I used 2020 uh, data as the latest available in the Philippines. So yeah, the following are the references. Special mention to the study of El Much, Nadim Marton, Testits Robert, and Alpec Levente in 2022, entitled Measuring Spatial Distribution in the Banking System in Hungary, as a major reference for this study. So if you have any further question, you may reach me via Gmail, and I will answer your questions gladly. Thank you so much.